Have you ever wondered if it's possible to know the future? Well, today we're diving into a single ancient vision that seems to do just that, map out centuries of world history with jaw-dropping precision. We're talking about a story of empires rising and falling, apparently written down over 2,500 years ago, long before any of it actually happened.
All right, let's just get right to it, because this is the big question, isn't it? Can an ancient text really map out the future? I'm not talking about vague, fuzzy predictions you could read anything into. We're talking about specific, verifiable details. So, can an ancient vision really act like a historical roadmap? Let's take a look.
So, picture this. The year is 553 BC. We've got a Hebrew prophet named Daniel living in exile in Babylon. And one night, he has this vision. And trust me, it's not a peaceful one. It's this strange, symbolic, and honestly pretty violent riddle about a massive clash between two powerful, animal-like empires.
First up on the scene is this incredibly powerful ram. The text tells us it has two horns, with one growing up taller than the other. It's just charging around, pushing west, north, and south, and the vision is crystal clear. Nothing, no animal could stand against it. This ram is the absolute king of the world. But, not for long.
Because out of nowhere, a goat comes flying in from the west. And get this, the vision says it moves so fast its feet didn't even touch the ground. It's got this one single massive horn right between its eyes, and it just slams into the ram with what the text calls furious power, completely shattering its two horns and trampling it into the dust. The ram's reign? Over. Just like that.
So now we're left with this completely bizarre imagery, right? A two-horned ram getting demolished by a super-fast one-horned goat. What on earth could this possibly mean? Well, this isn't just some random crazy dream. And here's the cool part. The text itself gives us the key to crack the code.
See, the vision wasn't meant to stay a mystery. Later in the same chapter, an angel, Gabriel actually, shows up specifically to explain it all to Daniel. He says, look, these aren't just animals. These symbols represent real-world kings and kingdoms that are still to come.
And boom, here it is. The text gives us a straight-up decoder key. That powerful ram with two horns, that's the Medo-Persian Empire. The super-fast goat from the west, that's the Greek Empire. And that single, giant, powerful horn, that represents its very first and greatest king, none other than Alexander the Great.
So we have the blueprint, we have the predictions, but did history actually follow the script? Let's compare this vision from the 6th century BC to the real historical timeline that played out over the next couple hundred years. Just look at this sequence. In 539 BC, Medo-Persia takes over as the world power. Check. Fast forward about 2 centuries, and in 334 BC, Alexander the Great and his Greek army invade from the west with a legendary speed that no one saw coming. Check. By 331, Persia is totally crushed. Check. But then, and this is wild, at the absolute peak of his power in 323 BC, Alexander dies suddenly. And just like the vision said, his huge empire doesn't go to his son, it gets split up into 4 smaller kingdoms, all ruled by his top generals. The sequence is, it's flawless.
This specific detail is just staggering. Think about it. The vision didn't just predict the goat would win. It predicted the shocking, sudden breaking of its great horn, Alexander's death at only 32 years old, and the exact number of kingdoms that would pop up in its place. Not 2, not 10, 4. And that is exactly what happened in history.
But hold on. The vision isn't done yet. It actually zooms in even closer, focusing on a new power that comes out of one of those 4 Greek kingdoms. The text calls it a little horn. But as we're about to see, its impact on history would be anything but little.
Now, historians and theologians are pretty much in universal agreement on this one. This little horn points directly to a king named Antiochus IV, who called himself Epiphanes, which means God manifest. He rose to power in the Seleucid kingdom, that's one of the 4 pieces of Alexander's old empire, and he launched one of the most vicious and brutal persecutions of the Jewish people in all of ancient history.
And the vision basically gives us a detailed rap sheet for this guy. It said he would attack the holy people. He did. It said he'd stop the daily sacrifices at their temple in Jerusalem. He did that too. It said he would trample on the truth and desecrate the sanctuary itself. Check and check. Every single one of these points is a documented historical action taken by Antiochus. He's famous, or infamous, for putting an altar to the Greek god Zeus right inside the holy Jewish temple.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. The vision presents Antiochus as more than just some historical bad guy.
Remember, the angel Gabriel said this whole vision is really about the time of the end. This suggests that Antiochus is a prototype. He's like a historical preview, a foreshadowing of a final, future world ruler who will act in a very similar, but probably even more destructive way. The past isn't just past, it's a template.
This idea is often called dual fulfillment, and it's a fascinating concept. Think of it like a pattern that echoes through time. A prophecy has a first, smaller, historical fulfillment that also serves as a sketch or a preview for a much bigger future event. It's like history rhymes.
And then, as if it wasn't specific enough already, the vision drops one last, incredibly precise detail, a number. It says this period of terror and desecration will last for 2,300 evenings and mornings, and then the sanctuary would be cleansed and made right again.
So what about that number? Well, that period of 2,300 evenings and mornings, which many scholars interpret as 1,150 full days, where sacrifices were stopped, lines up incredibly closely with the historical timeline, from the start of Antiochus's worst persecution until a Jewish revolt led by the Maccabees succeeded in taking back Jerusalem and cleansing and rededicating the temple. And that very event, that is what is still celebrated by Jewish people all around the world today as Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights.
So what do we do with all this? We have this ancient text that seems to have nailed the rise of Persia, the lightning-fast conquest of Alexander the Great, his sudden death, the four-way split of his empire, and even the rise of a very specific persecuting king, all laid out centuries before it happened. It really leaves you with a final thought to chew on. Is history just a random, chaotic line of events, or does it follow a pattern? Does it, as some have said, rhyme?